Hi everyone, my name is Gina Maloney and I'm going to be talking to you about writing across the curriculum. My thesis statement says, in order to provide as many opportunities as possible for student success, teachers need to incorporate writing into multiple subjects. Students should have happy work environments that inspire the creative process. I really believe that students should be able to have a happy work environment where they feel comfortable asking their teachers and their classmates questions and helping each other out. I know when I reflect back on my own education, I think of very straight rows of desks and a very quiet classroom. It was really nerve-wracking to speak up and ask a question in that sort of environment, and I want to really create the opposite for my students, just a safe space where they feel comfortable asking questions when they need to know something. So what is the writing process and why should students write across the curriculum? Well, I think all are very familiar with the writing process. We plan our writing in the pre-writing stage, and that might look like using a graphic organizer or designing a web just to think through our ideas and see what we would specifically like to write about. And then we would write our first draft, then revise it, maybe change a few things or rearrange a few paragraphs to make the sentence structure or the flow of the paper just work better overall together. Then we would edit it, and in my classroom we work through the writing process during center time, and the editing stage looks like maybe a student editing their own work and then finding a peer to also help edit. I know it's sometimes difficult to find mistakes when you're doing it yourself, so I always have my students switch with someone or ask a friend to um, edit their work for them. And then finally we publish it, and publishing it might look like sharing it, reading aloud, hanging it on the bulletin board, whatever my students feel comfortable with. Students should be writing across the curriculum in order to make connections to different content areas. This is important because sometimes there aren't always enough minutes in the day in order for me to get through every subject and every content area. So a lot of times we'll incorporate our science or our social studies right into our language arts block. I'm lucky enough to have about an hour and 45 minutes a day, so I don't really separate my subjects. 20 minutes of spelling, 30 minutes of ELA, everything just kind of flows together and we work through centers, and it just works so much better in my room. Writing cannot be limited to the literacy block if students are to succeed. Writing to learn in mathematics, science, social studies, and the arts is an important consideration for elementary school teachers. This is important because, like I stated above, sometimes there just isn't enough time in the day, so being able to incorporate different subjects in together really helps so much, and I think it makes the day flow better for students as well. So why is writing across the curriculum important? So Steve Piha says that written output is a great way to assess student knowledge. Writing is the essential skill students need as they enter adult life. Helping students learn to express themselves with confidence in all subject areas can contribute to improvements in behavior and self-esteem. Students who write clearly think clearly, and students who think clearly have a better chance of navigating their way through the obstacles of adolescence. And writing is power. This really speaks to me because students are lifelong learners and they need to be able to write. Writing is everywhere. When they reach their older years, their high school or their early adult lives, they're going to be emailing and writing letters. They're really going to need to be proficient writers. So the more writing they're doing, the better. So if we can write in every single subject, the better off they are. I know a lot of times people don't think of writing when it comes to mathematics, but if my students have a writing journal specifically for mathematics, they're even incorporating writing into that subject. John Dewey, in 1910, argued that separating and isolating content areas in the school curriculum was arbitrary and blurred the natural relationships content areas have with each other. So best practices, implementing these strategies. Quick Writes is actually something I just recently learned about, and I was able to incorporate it into the school year before it ended, and it really became a big hit in my classroom. It was a favorite for me, and my students loved it as well. For them, it was low risk. They were able to write down all their thoughts without being afraid of punctuation and grammar mistakes, and I was still able to see how well they comprehended the text. And by doing so, their writing actually improved, even though I wasn't worried about the grammar. It was really so effective. Quick Writes can be effective in helping students connect existing knowledge with new content. And Quick Writes allow for multiple brief practice sessions supporting fluency development and building a pattern of success. Poetry is another really fantastic way to integrate writing across the curriculum. There are many ways to use poetry in the classroom, such as inspiring student writing, exploring theme, exploring language, for pleasure, etc. I really try to do things for pleasure in my classroom as well. I sometimes think that's something we forget, but I try to teach my students that it's okay to read a certain text for pleasure. It's okay to write for pleasure. These are things that we want to show students that you can do for fun. Reading and writing doesn't always have to be work. Teachers see poetry as a way to teach content area material across the curriculum. In a large part, this is due to the proliferation of high-quality, award-winning literature that uses poetry as a tool to teach across the curriculum. My school does not have a set writing curriculum. We're really kind of on our own, but we have been provided with a trait crate. So each section in the crate starts with a picture book to introduce our lesson. And I teach fourth grade, and my students are still captivated by picture books, and it's such a great way to start out a lesson. I can use picture books across so many curriculums. I use them to teach point of view, inferencing. Sometimes I start off with a nonfiction picture book, and we might do a unit on polar bears or our habitat curriculum. There are just so many ways you can go. Art, including illustration, allows students to focus more on the components of the story rather than the mechanics of writing. Cullum states that rather than teaching writing as an isolated subject that only consists of conventional practices, we should be teaching reading and writing together as mutually supportive language processes, one leading to the next. With my centers and my small reading groups, I like to do Harry Potter. It's a great story with so many points of view, so many great things about it, and my students really love it. I like to give my students choice throughout the text. So these are a few examples. There are culminating project choices at the end, and many of them have to do with writing, but they also incorporate so many different things and so many different styles of writing that my students really enjoy. And giving them the choice to pick which final project they want to do just gives their work so much more meaning. They can write a sequel to the book. So what's going to happen next? Research about a famous magician, do a playwright. So they might be able to choose their favorite scene and write it in the form of a play. And then if they choose to, they can also perform it in front of the class. So there are just so many different writing options. In conclusion, I have learned that in order for students to improve as writers, they need to be writing consistently in multiple content areas. Reading and writing instruction should not be taught as separate subjects, but should be integrated. Students will make stronger connections, and their skills in both subjects will improve. And giving students choice in their activities and assessments creates ownership, and many students will improve their writing craft. However, I would still like to find more ways to integrate reading and writing work for my students on a daily basis. And how can I integrate other subjects such as mathematics, social studies, and science? Mathematics is definitely the one I struggle with the most, so I really would like to do some research on my own and find out how I can integrate writing into mathematics. And here is my reference page. Thank you.